Greetings, everyone. Thank you very much for having me today. It's a pleasure to be here with all of these folks. My name is Joan Kelsch, and I run the Green Building programs in Arlington County, Virginia. I'm going to tell you a little bit about our Green Building Incentive Program. It's designed for private developers to encourage green development in the county. We use our zoning ordinance as kind of the base of our program to encourage above code construction. We use LEED, the LEED Green Building Rating System, as our baseline measure for what is green. And we also focus heavily on, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. There we go. Focus heavily on energy efficiency. So quick introduction to Arlington. We're a relatively small jurisdiction right across the Potomac River from Washington, D.C. We're 26 square miles, but very densely populated, about 8,500 people per square mile. Arlington, the Washington, D.C. area, about 50 years ago, built a subway system, and Arlington took that and did some very careful planning associated with that. You can see this is our general land use plan. This is the shape of Arlington. Through the center, going horizontally, there's one metro corridor, that darker section. And there's another one that goes vertically on the east side of the county. And what the general land use plan shows is we're encouraging denser, higher development along that metro corridor, and then that preserves the lighter green or yellow areas for our lesser developed suburban type neighborhoods, kind of leafy communities with parks and whatnot. The zoning ordinance is a very effective planning tool that applies to the whole county. And it allows us to target dense development near transit, allowing for lots of some good transit-oriented development. Arlington has a very unique character in that the metro corridors are very walkable, lots of biking and various transit options, but those lighter areas are quite nice, more open, lesser developed neighborhoods. To give you a sense of what this looks like in real life, this is an aerial shot of Arlington looking east towards Washington, D.C. You can see at the very top there's a little white line, that's the Washington Monument. We've experienced lots of growth in the last 20 or 30 years. This is the Roslyn-Ballston Metro Corridor. Each M on here is a metro stop, a different subway stop. And we have focused our development very carefully around that corridor. So you can see the black lines kind of designate the dense development along the corridor and the lower density zoning on the outskirts. One interesting note is that this kind of transit-oriented development has really curbed traffic in the county. We have almost twice the population we had in 1970, but our traffic has stayed about the same. So we really encourage people quite successfully to use transit in the county. So as a result of all of that dense construction in those metro corridors, there are environmental consequences, and we became very aware of that back in the late 90s when this development started taking off. And we've tried to develop, our green building program was designed to mitigate some of those environmental impacts. So all of you who live in cities know stormwater is a big issue, air quality, increase in heat islands impacts energy efficiency and basic comfort. Reduced open space and habitat is a big problem when you have big dense development. And we're creating a lot of indoor space, a lot of indoor environment. And we as humans spend 90% of our time indoors. So creating indoor environments that are healthy and make people want to be there is really important as well. So the green building program is designed to mitigate some of those impacts, and the LEED Green Building Rating System has been very helpful in designing that. So our program allows developers to build slightly bigger buildings if they meet the LEED Silver standard or higher and very specific energy requirements. So that has two benefits. One, the developers like it because they get to build a slightly larger building with more leasable space, so it's a very powerful financial incentive for them. The community gets greener buildings with lower environmental impact that would come from regular standard code-built development. So these buildings use less energy, they use less water, there's less impact on the wastewater treatment system, on the stormwater management system, all of those sorts of things that cost a community money. These green buildings help mitigate some of that. The other intent was to push the market, the construction market in the DC area towards greener technologies. And over the last 20 years, that has definitely happened. The entire Washington, D.C. region has a lot of green construction. It's kind of almost the baseline of how people build in the region currently. So give you a brief history of our program. I won't go through all of these updates, but we launched the program back around 2000. It's not required, this is a voluntary program. Nobody has to do this. They can opt in if they choose. We offered office buildings the opportunity to build the LEED Silver for a little extra bonus. That became, we needed to update that fairly quickly because the market changed. People became more accustomed to building green, so it wasn't like we were incentivizing them. They were actually doing it anyway. Building code improves every couple years, every 3 years about. So there are more stringent energy codes, and we needed to increase our program so that we kept just one step ahead of the energy codes. We don't want to incentivize people for building a code building. They need to build something a little bit beyond that. And most recently, in 2014, we updated our code to focus heavily on energy performance. There have been a lot of issues about energy design, and then when you put people in the building and they turn on the lights and plug in their computers, the buildings actually use more energy than they were designed to use. So we're very interested in what the actual performance of the building is. And finally, we give a little bit of extra credit if you achieve some of these Arlington priority credits. So issues that are particularly important in Arlington, those include energy efficiency, really tight building envelopes, making sure that there's open space and habitat in that dense urban corridor, installing on-site renewable energy. And we really encourage folks to reuse buildings, not tear down and build new whenever possible, but to keep that embodied energy in the existing building. And we'll give you a little extra credit if you do that as well. So our program is, in concept, fairly simple. In implementation, it's a little bit more technical. So this is kind of the simple overarching view of our program. If a building decides that they would like a little extra density, which most of them do, they can choose to build to the LEED Silver standard using LEED version 4 or higher, and they have to do a couple other things. We want to see 10 years of energy reporting, so we want to know how much energy that building is using. And for office buildings, we require them, if they participate in the program, to get the Energy Star label within 4 years. So they've got some time to kind of have the building shake down and get there, but we really want them to get that certification. So that's a requirement of the program. Also, for residential buildings, we ask that they put in Energy Star appliances and WaterSense fixtures so that we ensure that all of those appliances and fixtures use less energy and less water through the life of the building. That is another requirement. And then, as I mentioned before, if they want a tiny bit of extra density, they can achieve a couple of Arlington priority credits or strive for the net zero energy certification. We have yet to see anybody do that, but we would love to give somebody some extra incentive if they chose to do that. So that's the conceptual overview. This slide is the tabular technical explanation of what we do. So I'll go through this quickly. I'm going to describe what that FAR, what that unit is, in the next slide. So bear with me, we'll get through this and then I'll explain exactly what that means. In the table, the LEED levels are on the left, silver, gold, and platinum. If you're looking for LEED Silver, you can get 0.25 FAR. That's an additional density in your project. Gold and platinum, the FAR, the density increases. We'll give you a little bit extra if you do 2 Arlington priority credits. You get 0.05 FAR. It's not very much, but in many cases it's been enough to encourage people to do that. And then the totals are on the side. Floor area ratio is a planning term. Many of you may be aware of what that is, but I'll explain it quickly with this slide. It allows us to calculate the additional density in a building based on the site area. So 0.25 does not mean you get a 25% bigger building. It means you get a certain amount of square feet added to your building based on the site area. So in this little example, I've noted a site area, a site that's 40,000 square feet in size. If the project agrees to achieve LEED Silver, they can get 0.25 FAR additional space. So in this case, 0.25 FAR is 25% of this area of the site, which would be 10,000 square feet. So they would add 10,000 square feet to their building, which is probably 10 apartment units, maybe 12 apartment units, or a portion of a floor of an office building. It's enough to encourage the developers to do it, but not so much that the building becomes huge and the community starts to complain that there's too much density in the neighborhood. Just to show you the trend of our program, so in this graph from 2000 on, this shows all the green buildings that have been approved in Arlington. So these are not all built yet. About half are built and half are either under construction or awaiting permits and whatever. But you can see the gray lines are non-LEED buildings and the green lines are LEED certified buildings. So the trend over time has been towards more and more LEED buildings. And now just about every site plan project that comes in the county participates in our program and achieves LEED certification at the silver or gold. We haven't seen too many platinums, but at some LEED level, which is great. You can see the recession there at 2009 to 2010, so it's a good indication of kind of economic development in the county as well. What ends up happening in our program is these buildings that achieve LEED certification and these extra energy points are on average about 7% bigger than the building would be if it built to code and to our zoning ordinance limitations. So like I said before, that means there's about 10 or 12 extra apartment units in the building, or there's a portion of a floor. So it's not noticeably that big. But the buildings use 10 to 20% less energy and 30 to 40% less water than a building built to the standard building code. So a slightly bigger building has a significantly smaller environmental footprint. And that makes everybody happy. The developers have more space to lease, and the community's environment is protected a little bit. We do have to enforce this program. So we ask, this is another one of the technical complications of the program, but we ask the developers, if they participate, they have to post a bond. It's usually a few to several $100,000 to guarantee that they will achieve their LEED certification. We've never had anyone fail, so we've never collected on the bond. But it is some paperwork that has to be done to make sure that there is an enforcement. We need a hammer for this program, and that is the enforcement mechanism. And the other thing to note is that we do have to update our program periodically. You saw that history. So every 3 or 4 years, we need to keep ahead of the game. The market transforms, LEED gets upgraded, the building code gets upgraded, and we need to make sure we stay one step ahead of that. So we're in line in the next year or two for another update. Probably with a focus on energy again. That seems to be the way things are moving at the moment.